Thank you. Oh my god, that's so annoying. Um, no sound at all whatsoever, which is completely stressful, but at least we know now and not in 2 hours from now. So I will start again, but don't worry, I hadn't got that far. So I will have to put a disclaimer on anybody who kind of watches it back. Kay's just talking to herself for the first 10 minutes, so skip forward. Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about Cuba, which has gone completely under the radar. I would not have spotted Cuba happening unless I like the only reason why I saw the Cuba stuff is because I saw one post on X in like the middle of the night. I'm going to talk about the UK's green power grab. Like this is really dangerous mission creep, and then the Islamophobia stuff, and then leave you on a high with overcoming negativity. So, it's because I was coughing while the countdown was going, so it's my fault. Like I clicked mute so that you didn't hear me like all the way through. Okay, so I think it's really important we talk about Cuba because nobody else is. Like I haven't seen anybody talking about Cuba. Cuba weren't even on my radar. Over in the USA, you guys are probably like, oh my god, they've been on my radar forever because Cuba is only 90 miles away from Florida. Like that is insane. I have got no geography-based knowledge, so that was a shock to me. But so UK, we tend to walk everywhere because our towns are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. Some of them are established like over 1,000 years ago. So there weren't cars then, and we're only small, like really fucking small. So we are very fucking full to anybody else who keeps trying to come over here. Teeny tiny little island. But 90 miles is like, an hour and a half, 2 hours in the car. Like that's like a journey that I would do. I don't like traveling. I'm just too lazy. If I can't get there in 5 minutes, I don't want to do it. But we are very lucky in the UK that a lot of the stuff is quite close. So even though they're trying to bring in these 15-minute cities, like towns are like that anyway, right? So I've got like less than 10-minute walk to a high street where I've got, whether it's pubs, rail, train station, like there's all of that stuff like just down the road anyway. So all of these, I think this is why the 15-minute city thing is kind of a little bit hilarious. However, people do tend to travel quite far for work. So I used to travel over 90 miles to and from work every day, which is why I refuse now. And I just travel like 9 steps. Like it's crazy. But yeah, so I'm not surprised. Cuba's been on American people's radar because it's so close. And there's the history, right? We're going to go into the history. We're not going to go all the way back like we did with the Muslims, but we are going to kind of understand where we are now geopolitically, because we have to make sure we understand the kind of to-in and fro-in of what's been going on as best as possible. And so I did a thing. So this is what I was initially kind of telling everybody. I did a thing. I upgraded the RAM on my computer all by myself. I say all by myself. I did have like AI-based, what the fuck am I doing, help. I was like, oh my god. And I had to get AI help because it like my computer, I did all the things. I turned the computer back on and it went, nope, don't want to do this. And so then I was just like, shit. And this was like 5:30. I managed to get my computer back up and running because I decided to do it on the day that I do my show, because that's how I roll. I have no forward planning. I have minimal forward planning, but hopefully this will stop the flashing that was going on, because that was driving me insane, and it should stop the whatever was going on with the weirdness and everything just kind of like randomly kicking me offline and all of that stuff. So fingers crossed. It's been stable now since 5:30. It's been back online and it's not just come up with some weird error and been like, don't want to play today. Okay, so on to Cuba, the backstory. Oh, and so I've been playing with Grok again, and he's been our overlord for us, and that threw up some random things I never even considered. So it's always worth pumping in the information, getting facts, getting figures, and then getting an AI to just do some hypotheticals, because it will pull stuff along the same thread that you've never considered, right? So we have to remember, like, AI has access to like all of the information. Yes, it's trained to focus on BBC and that bullshit, but you can just push back. Like I had to. I said, stop paying attention to this. You have to tell them every single time, which is a bit fucking annoying. But just, once you've kind of said no enough, and then it would some very interesting little insights. Okay, so we're going to go back to 1959, to the Cuban Revolution, when Fidel Castro overthrew the US-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista. This is where things really started to heat up, obviously, because before then it was playing ball with the US. But heat up for the US and the West rather than the people. So the people are very unhappy with the West pre that, because we installed someone, right? So this is where we kind of end up with the Bay of Pigs 1961, Cuban Missile Crisis 1962, and then we have economic embargoes, and loads of other things that we're going to go into a bit. It's not a full history lesson, but just so we can kind of understand the strategic importance of what's happening right now, like within the last couple of days. So starting off with 1959, pardon me, sorry. So when Fidel Castro rebelled and they had the revolution, Cuba then aligned with Russia, right? And this is at the height of the Cold War. This is when, so last week we went into China, we went into China and what was going on over there. We have communism. So if you think about, we've got communism, like a giant wall of communism. And then that war was spreading through the Middle East, right? They kind of took a lot of it on board. It was just seeping in everywhere. We have, so the Cuban Revolution. So Fidel Castro forces overthrow US-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista January the 1st, and Castro nationalized the US-owned properties. So sugar mills, oil refineries. So, overthrew and then just technically stole American stuff, right? American-owned businesses took them, nationalized them. US did recognize the new government, but then we had trade restrictions. And something that I hadn't realized, that on his rise to power, Castro had convinced all the people who was part of his revolution, I say all the people, convinced the populace, the general populace, that he was not a communist. He had an anti-communist stance. So this is, in context, this is 10 years after the CCP has come to power. Obviously, there's Russia. So the people were quite rightly wary of communism, how it's going to affect them, what it's going to look like, how it makes their lives very, very difficult, because they're seeing that. So remember, we spoke about the Great Leap Forward that happened, where millions of people died. We've had like mass starvation in Russia. So people at this point in time are very dubious about communism. So Castro's rise, he says he had an anti-communist stance. Then he was already, so this is kind of like a bit odd. He was already pre-exposed to Marxist ideas. He was a student at the University of Havana in the 1940s, reading works by Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, and others. But he focused initially on anti-dictatorial nationalism. However, some historians are arguing that he was a closet Marxist, which is really interesting because if you then pair that with what's going on in the UK and Starmer, and we dove into Starmer and the fact that he ended up in a concentration camp and he loves the whole communism idea, and he was like all in on it as a younger person, and then supposedly went a bit right with socialism. Where are we now in the UK? We have Nazi-based rules, like they're getting rid of the jury trials, they are locking people up for saying something against the government, right? So we're experiencing like the beginnings of Nazi Germany under Starmer, and Starmer came to power being centrist, and he was like a human rights lawyer, right? Who would have thought the human rights lawyer is the one who just fucking destroys the rights? So what we see is the same, like it's literally, I literally have got your big letters underneath this, like Starmer, because as I was reading it, I was like, holy shit. So, you know, I mean, I wasn't duped by that cunt because I looked into him and the Fabian Society and all of that well before he was elected in. I didn't wait until afterwards. Actually, I looked into the Fabian Society, it was 6 years ago. So all of those fucking influencers who put the information out last year, like, where the fuck were you? Because that information wasn't new information. Like 1920, like late 1920s, they've been knocking around since. Anyway, so they believe that it's, so lots of historians said that he was a closet Marxist. So he was a Marxist, but he just said he wasn't, right? And then in December 1969, he announced very proudly, "I'm a Marxist, Leninist, and shall be one until the last day of my life." Merged his movement with the PSP, which was, you know, the Communist Party that already stood, and then became the PCC, Communist Party of Cuba, in 1965. What this did is it further aligned Cuba with Russia. Russia still communist at this point. So completely opposite ideals to the West, to the Commonwealth, and obviously America with 90 miles on its doorstep, which is crazy. So it solidified Cuba as a one-party state, leading to human rights criticisms and economic centralization. So straight up, the people were duped, they are getting fucked over, and it just ends up being tough, right? Because that's what happens. So once he embraced Marxism, then the door opened to the other already aligned Communist Party. So before, he was kind of like dipping his toes and trying to see if he could like win friends and influence lots of different countries, like try and be friends with America, but it wasn't going so well, and then went all in on communism. And we have to remember that the communist revolution in Russia was funded by Wall Street and the banks, right? It's like the oil barons, the banks, the new money overthrew, fighting back. So the new money rising, wanting to take the earth for themselves. So we've got factions against factions against factions. But that's what we're seeing play out right now, is the old guard, new guard, and then Trump just coming in with his fucking wrecking ball. But the old and new guard are still trying to fight each other at the same time, right? Because they are fighting for survival. So as soon as he kind of like came out full communist, he obviously now we get formalized friendships with Russia. Before it was like a little bit of like help and support, now it's like it's all in. So from 1960 onwards, Moscow provided massive aid to oil machinery from Russia. So that's the same as what the UK did, Britain did to Iran, right, in the early 1900s. You've got all this oil, but you haven't got the late 1800s, early 1900s. You haven't got the skills or the machinery or the advanced knowledge to get it out. We'll get it out for you. So that's what Russia's doing, right? So like, we did it, and then we've just fucking got too greedy or whatever happened. But that's what everybody's doing. It's the same stuff that everybody's following. Like, oh yeah, that worked, so we're just going to do it instead. Subsidies worth billions annually. So Russia pretty much propped up and put Cuba on the map, so to speak, in exchange for ideological alignment and strategic basing, right? It wasn't freely given. It wasn't And it wasn't just pure profit. So when the British Empire did it in Iran, we didn't then say, right, and now you all have to be Western. I mean, it happened, but it wasn't forced. It was just like, hey, we want your oil field. And also remember, the Ottomans kind of sold everything off because they were trying to stop Russia coming down. So Russia was coming in aggressively and like militarily. And then we just went through the back door, taking the oil out from Russia's hands and then out from the Iranians, and we just like, it was just money. We just paid, like we bought it. So we didn't demand anything, we just took it. And so we didn't take it, we bought it, right? This is what's really pissing me off, is everybody wanting reparations. So there's something about the Natural History Museum and how we should have to give back all of the artifacts. We paid for those artifacts because people paid for the digs. They paid for the digs. They paid to come over there. They paid, like, the amount of travel-based industry that was built off the archaeologists who went over there. You've already had the money benefiting from that thing, right? If I go to a pub and I buy a pint, and then 6 months later the landlord comes back to me and says, well, that pint you bought, I want it back. I want reparations. But like, you took my money when I bought it, and it's like definitely not in my system anymore, like 6 months later. But this is how retarded this whole reparation thing is when it comes to things. Just like, we did not have, and we still do not have, the actual physical bodies of people, teeny tiny little fucking islands, right? And we had like very few millions of people back then. There is no way we could use our physical bodies to go. We just bought, right? You had no money, you had no infrastructure, you had no, like, you didn't have electricity, you didn't have the things that we had based on the Industrial Revolution that started in our country, right? So you wanted what we had, we wanted what you had. That's called a fucking trade agreement. And yes, we might have ripped you off. Tough shit. That happens in business. It does happen. If you are a teeny tiny little company and you're getting in bed with a big company who's putting up the fucking money and the infrastructure, they take the lion's share of the profits. Like, that's not slavery. That's just fucking business. That's what happened. Rant over, potentially. Probably going to come back to it. But just, can we just make sure that we are looking at things like from the reality of the perspectives that was going on. So Russia was giving military support. So we had the Comic-Con. That's funny. That was the Soviet economic bloc, was called Comic-Con. I don't think they mean, like, you know, comics. Obviously not. I reckon it's like communism. Like, how funny, Comic-Con and Comic-Con. So they got a bit, a relationship between Cuba and Russia got a bit antsy in the 1970s because Cuba got involved in anti-apartheid stuff in Africa. And that kind of pissed off the USSR, and I haven't looked into why, but there was probably some kind of dodgy deals going on in there. So let's just think. So Russia was coming in, potentially scuppered some plans. So with, you know, so remember we had Mao rise 10 years before Cuba. Now Che Guevara did meet Mao in 1960. So just after Cuba, you know, Castro decides, I'm all in on communism. Che Guevara goes out and meets Mao, visits Beijing, discusses guerrilla tactics. It didn't really come into a deep alliance, but they were kind of like swapping, you know, they were kind of like so how do we put it? So Cuba and Russia were like besties, and then like China was the third wheel. Like, you kind of use them, but they weren't on speed dial until 1976, when Deng Xiaoping reforms facilitated warmer ties, leading to today's strong economic partnerships. So where we are now is China is Cuba's second largest trading partner. So already the interventions that we're seeing in Cuba again is hitting Russia, is hitting China hard. Also back then was making mates with East Germany, but again that was under Russian control back then, and Czechoslovakia. So Czechoslovakia provided technical aid, also friends with Ho Chi Minh from like over in Vietnam. And again, so Nelson Mandela was like praised Castro because of the whole the whole liberation psyop that was going on over there. Did kind of like was a little bit mates with with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela for oil. So there's oil kind of situation going on there. Okay, so then 1969 to 61, there was an embargo in 1960, expanding full trade ban, 1962, except food and medicine, and then diplomatic ties were severed in 1961. And then this leads to the Bay of Pigs fiasco, absolute fiasco, where the CIA back Cuban exiles and try to get them to overthrow from the inside, and it was just like a complete and utter shit show. Pushed Cuba deeper into Soviet arms, and it also, I didn't realize this, so it also so they lent on the mafia because they'd lost Cuban casino interests. So I need to go and check to see if Michael Franzese said anything about Cuba and the Bay of Pigs. He probably did. But so that was under Kennedy, and so it's interesting because obviously Kennedy's dad did deals with the mafia, and then Kennedy president didn't do what they wanted. Well, it kind of tried to round them all up, and then that didn't end up so well for him. And then the CIA asking the mafia to take him out, right? So the mafia was used quite a lot in the 60s by the looks of things, and heavily involved in Florida today. So different mafia. I can't remember which mafia is which mafia. Italian are not in Florida. It's more the, can't remember which one it is. But so, with under that Goobasaurus DeSantos, was that his name? I can't remember. Who was trying to be president? You know what I mean? But that's like, and we've got human trafficking with Disney. Fucking Epstein was there. Like, Florida's the place to be. It's 90 miles away from Cuba, so absolutely the place to be. Okay, so the embargo crippled Cuba, 130 plus billion over decades. It didn't actually do anything to topple the regime. And that really kind of obviously pissed off the people because they are now under communism, which they didn't want, right? They elected them based on non-communism. Then they get this, and then they see America just fucking squeezing the life out of them. So they're not going to be very happy. Might change nowadays, right? But that's where we were. Then 1962, we have the Cuban Missile Crisis, 13-day nuclear standoff. USA said they wouldn't invade Cuba, and then secret removal of US missiles from Turkey. We had so Russia and USA kind of like back-channeled. Cuba were pissed off that they were then pushed to the side, right? You would be. You're the one who's got like fucking missiles aimed at you, and then like everybody's making deals and you don't even get a fucking look in. So 1979, 1980s, we have proxy flicks Mariel boat lift and Angola intervention. So Cuba sends troops to Angola, aiding anti-apartheid forces against US South African-backed rebels. Mariel Boatlift 1980 sees 125,000 Cubans flee to the US amid economic woes, and Reagan labels Cuba a terrorism sponsor in 1982, and that's a year before I was born. So all of this has gone on like before I'm even like not even a little speck inside my mummy's womb yet. Cuba's internationalism, 300. So then, like 300,000 troops in Africa boosted prestige but strained economy. Then Castro released criminals and mental patients among refugees into the USA, right? And that's what was going on before the border war was kind of finished again. So this is same kind of play, like it's the same things. Like when you look back in history, like and this is quite handy because then you can see what happened next, like in the past, over and over and over, and then you can see what's going on now, and it's just not that it's not the same. Post-apartheid. Oh yeah. So then I was asking. I asked to see if there was any kind of indication that Cuba's involved in, the Kill the Boer, the white genocide over in Africa at the moment, and there's no kind of evidence of that. It's sort of just they were there back then, and obviously they are not in the same strategic military position. In no way, shape, or form can they be affording to kind of do shit like that over there. However, South Africa is backing Cuba amid US sanctions and post Venezuela. So South Africa has been kind of like, hugging them from the sidelines, but Cuba's just been like inward focusing, trying to sort his life out. So 1990s, post-Soviet special period. So the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and this is what triggered Cuba's economic crisis. So Soviet Union was struggling to function and fund itself. It was kind of like becoming like skinter than skint. No more money to prop up proxy-based regimes. So US tightens embargo via Helms-Burton Act 1996 and allowed lawsuits over confiscated properties. So those properties that they just nationalized and took. So we had the sugar industry. What did we have? We had sugar and oil refineries. The American businesses are now allowed to sue, right? Which is not going to benefit the Cuban people in any way, shape, or form. So Cuba's GDP fell by 35%, and the Helms-Burton Act angered allies such as the EU. 2000s, George W. Bush tightened sanctions on Raul Castro. Well, on Cuba, and Raul Castro takes over. My apologies. So Fidel handed power to his brother 2008 during health crisis, and they were allowed cell phone access. So that's interesting. 2006, 2008. So that's Obama coming into play, and allowed cell phone access. And who remembers like the Obama phone, right? And the fact that Obama rigged the election using Facebook. So that's interesting years, especially with what happened. So post 9/11, Cuba accused of bioweapons, unproven, but it was the tenure where everybody had bioweapons. Most of them didn't. They were on, US soil, China, Russia, maybe, UK soil. CIA were kind of like handling their own. Fort Detrick? No, I mean, it's pouring down over here. I can't remember which one it is. So we're like fucking around with bioweapons, even though we've signed the UN convention. But obviously we're blaming everybody else. And then, you know, going hell for leather, toppling regimes left, right, and centre. 2010s and onwards, Obama normalized relations, 2014. So he was obviously doing it earlier, but kind of lots of stuff in the background. And then he reopened the embassies, eased travel and trade. Raul stepped down, 2018. And then Miguel Diaz-Canel becomes president, and Trump rolls in and goes, nope, nope, we're not having this. No thanks. And we then get like the Havana syndrome, we get the sound attacks, we get the Jew weapons, so directed energy weapons, and all of that going on, right? And this was an interesting little thing that Grok threw up, right? So Cuba's vaccines were shared globally, but not with the US. So I mean, I've not looked into this because the whole, you know, computer kerfuffle. I wonder what Cuba's vaccine was. Whether I mean, I would assume that's probably a normal vaccine, like Russia's Sputnik one that was done kind of normally. That, you know, I mean, outside of normal vaccine-based harms. It's not genetically altering you. So there were 200 vaccines like being pushed in the beginning, like 200 companies bringing vaccines to market, like very early stages. Over 200. Like the WHO used to have a spreadsheet with which one was coming from where, which company, which trial they were in, the success rates, and they used to have it on their website. Just and then obviously all the conspiracy theories kind of happened, and they deleted it all. But out of over 200, like they just pushed the ones from the US, and then they did AstraZeneca, but remember they unceremoniously destroyed AstraZeneca by blaming everything on them, because AstraZeneca, which is Oxford, which was, you know, British people paid for, were not allowed to monetize it, and it was normal made. It was not mRNA made, and everybody who had the AstraZeneca's jab were then told they had to go and have a Pfizer or Moderna. Right, so you've had these, you now, even though they were told this is like one job and done, like, because that's what normal vaccines, one job and done. But then, you know, everybody who was AstraZeneca were told they had to go and have those two. But that was just an interesting little tidbit. Like, you know, that's why wasn't Cuba's vaccine allowed to be shared with the US? I mean, it's only people who were jabbing with Pfizer and Moderna who are fucking dropping dead, right? In droves. Then we had like 220,000 Cubans at the US border in 2022 under Biden, right? So 2022, this is Biden. He's allowing people, you know, he stops creating the wall and starts allowing people just through. He maintained most of Trump's sanctions, but resumed some flights and remittances. Cuba faced protests over inflation, blackouts, and then embedded its ties with Russia and China. And obviously, Biden was also in bed with Russia and China. So he was given, what was it, £3 million from an ex-mayor. Well, I mean, Hunter was, right? £3 million from the ex-Moscow mayor. Then we have, you know, CCP Biden. So that was he was doing his part to support Cuba, which then feeds back into China and Russia. So Trump jumps back in 2025, 2026, and again, straight up. Sanctions straight off, and then we get to the spicy era, right? Spice time in 2026. So January the 1st, We have Iran popping off with the protests, like proper popping off. And we have Trump stating no more oil or money to Cuba, declares a national emergency, imposes oil tariffs that hits February, Cuba's energy crisis peak, no shipments for months, widespread blackouts, protests. Cuba confirms this is where we are now, like high-level talks March 13, 2026, and released 51 prisoners as part of goodwill. So at the moment, USA just wants like the fucking people swarming into the country to stop. And Cuba is desperate for energy. Like they rely heavy on fossil fuels. Now, with regards to the political prisoners, like the release, like that was done through the Vatican. That's just strange. I think it's strange. So tying it into Venezuela, right? Because this is important. So we can't look at things out of context. So back end of 2025, we have so we kind of go to like June, July. We have what they're calling it a 12-day war with Israel and Iran. Then we have Nigeria over Christmas. We have who else was done before Christmas? I can't remember. So those we have. I mean, Venezuela was January the 3rd. There was somebody else last year. Can't remember. Nigeria sticks out of my head, but they were second. It's just genuinely just so much. My brain fart. Okay. So with regards to Venezuela, so like ramping it right up until January this year. So we have Iran protesters going crazy. We then obviously they start getting shot at, and then we're like, you know, the actual war is started. At the same time, we have so he does try de-escalation first with sanctions, using all the things that we do with diplomacy, right? So sanctions on Venezuela's oil firm, and also Venezuela was pumping drones into Iran pumping drones into Russia, which is used in Ukraine. And this is where it all gets fucking messy. You know, enemy of my enemy is not really my friend, who's not really my enemy, like depending on who I'm fighting. It's really fucking weird. But also Venezuela was giving Cuba oil, right? So straight up, Cuba needed to be drowned out of the conversation. US Navy deploys in the Caribbean, November 2025. So there was lots of pirate ships stopping drugs, and all of that was kind of happening last year. But also oil tankers, so intercepting Venezuelan oil tankers bound for Cuba and Iran. So you can see, again, this is why I didn't understand why everybody was so shocked by the whole Iran thing. I was like, nobody's been paying attention to what's been going on in the background. This was always kind of sadly inevitable because they want everybody dead. So Trump accuses Maduro of genocide, and this isolated Venezuela economically, forcing Maduro to rely more on Russia and China, which then justified the USA action, right? So backed Maduro into a corner, and that enabled him to kind of go in guns blazing. So January the 3rd, we have Operation Absolute Resolve. And remember, they again, with regards to Venezuela, Trump and the CIA, under Trump, the CIA had been in talks in Venezuela for months efforts with diplomatic ways for him to step down, for a peaceful transition of power, and he just refused, right? So it was they were allowed to come in by members of the cabinet to do what they needed to do, right? So there was two ways Venezuela was going to go down, but it was going to go down, right? No, one way or the other. The only way to put Russia and China back in their boxes, and reverse the mission creep of like genuine communism world takeover. I mean, nobody wants to be under China. Like even the Chinese people don't want to be under fucking China. And Russia's not hugely great, right? It's not. I mean, more. So everybody uses this statistic. Like 14,000 people were like arrested in the UK for speaking against the government on like social media, compared to Russia. I think Russia was like in the 2,000 or 3,000 or something like that. But that's because people are terrified to do it. Right, so we are getting arrested and we're telling them to go fuck themselves, right? Because we're not in a position. I mean, in China, if you went against the government, that's it. You're locked out your bank account, you're locked out your home, you can't eat, you're on the street, you're homeless, you become one of the forgotten, you're dead. Or you're just like cherry picked off you just like picked up and then you're organ harvested, right? So just because the UK's got like really high fucking statistics, it just shows you how comfortable we are in the UK to do that compared to those other countries. It's not that the UK is yet worse because we don't end up disappeared. There's fear, right? If people genuinely thought the police were going to come and disappear them, like, I mean, they can try and fucking knock on your door and you can tell them to go fuck themselves because it's not a crime, right? It isn't an actual crime. Show me a victim, and anybody who does that, again, plead not guilty, right? We have that right. Is then charges are dropped, right? So be careful. Oh, I've lost myself. Okay, so now where we are, so US airstrikes. So January the 3rd, Operation Absolute Resolve. Airstrikes hit Caracas. Special Forces Captain Maduro and wife Cecilia Flores. Trump's announces US will run the country indefinitely, seizing oil infrastructure, which is so legal debates rage. So UN has condemned the aggression, but nothing's happened. Right, so all of these fucking international laws, right? We have to do this refugee convention because of the international law. Like, nobody's done anything about America systematically invading other countries, right? And I'm gonna caveat the way that it's been done is like minimum casualties and done definitely to preserve life. When Trump says he doesn't want people to die, he definitely doesn't want American citizens to die. Like, I believe him with the way that he's doing these things. Sadly, when you are we're now in a hot war, this is where it ends up, right? Unfortunately. But nobody's done anything. China hasn't done anything. Russia hasn't done anything. They just bitch on TV, right? Or I was in the supermarket yesterday getting tortoise food. It's so funny because the only the greens and vegetables and salad stuff in the fridge is like tortoise food or dog vegetables. We have a little bit in the freezer, but like literally like it's like minimal amounts. Anyway, so I mean, if you look at my Nexa like thingies, to be like, oh yeah, she's really healthy, like that, none of that's little animal food. That's not my food. I mean, I do eat healthy, but it's just like a lot of it's meat, just the majority of it's meat. And there was like one newspaper left, and it was the I newspaper, and on the front they had an image of Trump with a turban on, and then like explosions, like nuclear explosion in the background. And I genuinely looked at it and I thought, how on earth has anybody taken this seriously? They are trying to show the world that Trump is a terrorist because he's killed a notorious terrorist and is wiping off the game board a terrorist regime, an active terrorist regime which tried to carry out a mass genocidal campaign in the United Kingdom over Christmas that was foiled, continually kills members of the British Empire, has been at war with the United States and the British Empire and other Western countries for decades, but trumps the terror. Like, it's just like the actual insanity of the left and indoctrinated. Because even if you're not left-leaning, you must be able to look at a huge cover of a newspaper and be like, why have they put him in a Taliban? Like, why have they put him in a turban? Because he's murdered. Like, he was Khamenei. His nickname is the Butcher of Tehran for what he did. He didn't just rig an election by using like fucking computer generated jiggery pokery, which is what happened in the USA, like computer generated jiggery pokery, right? People were slaughtered. And on, you know, the first, and you don't even have to go all the way back to 1979. You can just look at what happened like 2 months ago in Iran when protesters were fucking slaughtered by the regime, right? And if you don't want to go to Iran, you just look at what people are doing in this country to British, natural-born British citizens and not imported citizens whose parents have never even grown up here, lived here, just gave birth one day and then decided that to claim citizenship, i.e. the Egyptian guy who's still fucking in our country even though he hates it, who has got no right to be here, genuinely, legitimately, no fucking right to be here. He is a terrorist. His sister's a terrorist. His mum's a fucking terrorist. He was put in an Egyptian prison for being a fucking terrorist, right? He is not a British citizen. His mum just so happened to be born here while his grandparents were at university, getting a PhD. That's it. Like, he has no actual ties to the country. Gone on a rant. Apologise. I mean, it just happens in my Monday night ranting. Okay, but in there are some tidbits of useful bits of information. Okay, so where are we now? So Trump says they're going to run the country indefinitely, seizing oil infrastructure. Why is this important? Because it cuts off Cuba, which cuts off Iran, which cuts off China, which cuts off Russia, forcing Russia to the table over the Ukraine. Russia is desperate, absolutely desperate to get Ukraine resolved. And they didn't even want a fucking long drawn out war anyway. Remember, they came in as a special operation. They actually did some good stuff in the beginning, and now it's just slaughtering innocent individuals. And that's not necessarily Russia's fault. That's because Ukraine literally goes round and they are stealing people from their homes and sticking them on the front line while Zelensky's buying fucking yachts, mansions, money's getting funneled. The reason why the cabal cannot have the Russia-Ukraine thing sorted is because that's where all the fucking money is. That is where the cabal is getting their money. This is where all, like, why else do you think we keep giving billions to Ukraine? So we give billions to Ukraine and then it goes back into the hands of the fucking cabal because Trump's been fucking seizing everything and chopping the heads off the fucking Medusa snake. That Ukraine is giving money to the Western puppet masters. That's why Ukraine is so fucking important. That's why Bozo fucking turned up 2 weeks later when Ukraine were ready to do a deal, right? Russia went in, destroyed the biolabs, went to stop the fucking human trafficking, organ harvesting, slave labor, all that shit that's going on in Ukraine. Went in, stopped all that stuff, liberated the people, Ukraine were ready to make a deal 2 weeks late. 2 weeks in, Bozo went over and stopped it, and systematically everybody keeps going over and stopping it, right? But Putin is desperate for that to be resolved. One, because fucking draining resources, like Russia's population are going down. It's dragged on and on and on. But also now they are struggling at home, right? Struggling at home because Trump's fucking took Venezuela out, taking Iran out, taking and Iran. So China was getting like 80-90% of Iran's oil, so that has harmed China. But also we have like military deals between Russia and Iran, so it's harming Russia as well. So both Russia and China. Obviously we had the Greenland thing, we have fucking Starmer's mate trying to push through Chagos, which will give it to Mauritius, which actually gives it to China, right? That's that deal going through. So oil production's been redirected to the USA, cutting flows to adversaries. So China's lost 80% of Venezuelan oil. So China lost Venezuelan oil, then it's lost Iranian oil, and now it's lost Cuban, right? In 3 months, less than, no, 3 months. What does that do? That stops China fucking flooding every country with their cheap shit, giving other countries the opportunity to rebuild and industrialize, right? So at the moment, we're being forced to deindustrialize, and then all of the service-based industry jobs are going to disappear because of AI. So post-capture, the US has installed, this is Venezuela still, interim governments, and I did a show on Venezuela. We looked at the history and stuff as well, prioritizing oil exports, but we're only kind of recovering it because it's linked into Cuba. Delcy Rodriguez distanced from Cuba. So once she was installed, she's kind of like downed the hatches, reduced Cuban advisors. So Venezuela becomes aligned to the USA, and USA again now becomes like, energy dominance. And let's not forget, so everybody who's saying, Trump's just doing this to take all the oil. The first thing he did, both terms, was get America's oil fields pumping, right? And then what did Joe Biden do? He completely drained the entire reserves again, turned off the giant pipeline. Like, I remember, first thing he said was drill, baby, drill, right? So he protected America as much as possible from the volatility that he knew was coming, right? He knew this would be a possibility and did whatever he could to protect oil for the Americans as much as possible, right? And obviously it's not his job to protect everywhere else, and everywhere else has been fucking the world over. So here we are in the UK. Like, so me and Matt were looking at how much we earn. So we have about 64,000 pounds coming in a year, which is not a bad income, right? We own our own home. Well, it's on a mortgage. That is not enough to function in today's world. Right, it's insane. Like, my car's been off the road, I mean, because it needs fixing, right? I've got for like 6 months. I only go to the shops. So now gas prices have gone up, oil prices have gone up. I probably couldn't afford to go to around the shops in my car anyway, because it's like it's not very economical. It probably cost me like 80 quid to fill it. Well, it used to be like £80 to fill it. It's probably cost me £80 to get to and from Sainsbury's. I'll just walk. But so it sounds like a lot of money, right? But if we go back 6 years, when I was removed from the internet and we were surviving just on Matt's wages, things were as tight then as they are now, when wages are double, right? So it's not cheap to live in the UK, I can tell you, in any way, shape or form. And we aren't big spenders. We aren't You know, we don't do takeaways, and we do like homemade food. Like we've always done homemade food. We do have animals. The animals cost quite a bit to keep. So, but so it's going to get harder, right? Harder and harder and harder. Like there's the middle class, it's the people who are not on benefits. So the UK government are now giving benefits to extra benefits to people who are going to struggle because of the shit things that they put in, right? Forcing net zero. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. But so it's getting, the rest of the world is being squeezed like America was being squeezed under Biden, right? You guys like your fucking egg prices were through the roof, right? So they like, and we were sat here like over this side of the pond going, what the fuck? That's insane. Like £10 for 6 eggs is insane, right? Our eggs are like 19p an egg. It's bonkers. And good eggs, like free range eggs. You get what do we get? I think it's £1.96 for 10. So I mean, it's coming to the summer, so but then we have geoengineering that keeps like fucking snowing and all of that shit going on, so that we struggle. But if you are struggling and focused on earning an income, you're then not dealing with the cabal through the courts. So Cuba sanctions timeline, so 26, this is January 2026. So Cuba's energy crisis stems from losing Venezuelan oil, which was 50 to 60% of imports, exacerbated by your sanctions. Trump's 11th of January post, no more oil or money going to Cuba, signaled intent to enforce a full blockade. USA also intercepted a Venezuelan tanker en route to Cuba a few days before. So Cuba was always on the cards, and seeing what's happened everywhere else, Cuba's now come to the table, right? It's inevitable that it cannot function in the way that it's been functioning. So January 29, Trump declared it's Executive Order 14380. Trump declared a national emergency over Cuba, authorizing tariffs on any country supplying oil to Havana, targeting Mexico, which picked up the pieces post Venezuela. Then February, March, we have the naval blockade enforcing the no oil policy, and Trump floated the friendly takeover February 27th. Then we have like protests, so people took the streets, Communist Party offices were torched, and then the talks started 3 days ago. So it's genuinely insane how much has happened in 6 months. And I think more insane how people still keep pumping that Trump's a cabal. Like it is like economically does not benefit the cabal. Geopolitically does not benefit the cabal. Like all the things that he's doing does not help the global order that they were trying to create in any way, shape or form. And it's not that America's now coming out as like the one leading the way, because that's not what we're actually seeing on the ground afterwards. Is we're seeing like actual deal, like we go like the baddies are out, like let's make an actual deal, like let's just be like friendly neighbors. So the Iran war definitely indirectly accelerated Cuba's talks with the US. So prioritizing Iran puts leverage on Cuba. So on the 16th of March on Air Force One, Trump stated, we're talking to Cuba what we're going to do Iran before Cuba. So Cuba knew. That was today. So while Trump is, decimating Iran, we've got Karg Island, that's the oil facility, blocking Hormuz Strait. Oil prices are going through the roof, but literally saying you're next to Cuba. Again, this is why they put the Taliban hat on him, but it's not, he's not just fucking bombing civilians in any way, shape, or form. So that was me trying to. So why aren't China and Russia stepping in more aggressively? They just can't. And that's what I confirmed. I was like, is it because Russia is drained with Ukraine? 100%. Then also Iran and Venezuela have already fucked over China 100%, and there's the tariffs, right? So there's tariffs which are being sent to China and Russia, and then like cutting off their capacity to function and trade via like taking the knees out of the oil, like capacity for oil. And Venezuela really hit Russia hard with oil as well, not just China. Okay, so this is what I asked him to do, to be a hypothetical evil overlord perspective. So Trump ripping up the game board. So if I were an evil overlord viewing China and Russia as pawns in a grand anti-Western scheme, Trump's 2025-2026 moves would indeed feel like a board-smashing disruption. So that's Grok's response to my premise. So exploring it hypothetically as a geopolitical game, examining angles like proxy erosion, return to the people, nuances and implications without endorsing real world harm, of course. So not endorsing real world harm in any way, shape or form, Grok, I promise. So the game board setup, pawns and proxies. So China and Russia as major pawns, leveraging proxies, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, for influence, cheap oil, ideological footholds, and a USA distraction. So Venezuela as energy hub, discounted crude to China, Iran as Middle Eastern disruptor, Russia arms deals, Cuba as an ideological outpost with huge anti-US symbolism. So Trump's rip-up moves, Venezuela capture January 3rd, seizes oil staffs, proxies, Iran war February 27, degrades military, blocking Hormuz, Cuba blockades January 29, forces talks. So America first, flips board, proxies ripped up via sanction strikes, not endless wars, right? So is this country's back to the people? Yes. Venezuelan post-Maduro sees US-backed reforms. So oil's gone to markets, not subsidies, frames of liberation. Iran strikes aim at regime change, potentially empowering dissidents. Cuba talks could liberalize economy, returning agency if concessions hold. It does break authoritarian chains, but it is US imposed, which is why I keep saying people need to be really careful because Trump's not going to be here forever, right? No, is not giving it back to the people. So potentially masking intervention. So Venezuela is run by the US, Iran has been bombed into chaos, Cuba's been starved. So civilian suffering such as blackouts contradicts people first. And if transitions fail, power vacuums breed warlords, not democracy. So we have to make sure that and so what you see in his first term, like his very first few executive orders are really interesting, especially the ones that are taking money, literally taking ownership of land, properties, money seized, all of those things from anybody involved in human trafficking. Then what you see the ripple effect from that, and it wasn't talked about at all in influencer circles, right? It wasn't. The Rothschilds were literally selling the family silver. Right? You don't do that if you've got shitloads of money. So what we had in Trump's first term was economic and capturing money. It was all about following the money, getting the information, flipping people left, right, and center to turn on other people and going up and up and up the chain, right? So then come back into term 2, and now it's the end game, right? This is they've got no financial reserves because they were fucking had no money, which is why they're ripping the people off, right? Ripping the people off and funneling it through Ukraine because they have to. Like, this isn't just like because they're just being greedy. There is literally no money. And yes, fucking midget in charge of Ukraine is, you know, getting some money on the back end, but he's not got billions, and the sheer volume of billions that have gone through Ukraine that was being funneled into you know, EU cabal based pockets. So now he's cutting off their capacity to make money, right? So they've got their financial reserves are gone. Their propaganda arms are gone. If you look into the actual distrust of the mainstream media, like the BBC is under advisement for going subscription model. They're gonna maybe thinking about putting a fucking tax on people because people are refusing to pay. Like BBC propaganda. We have in America the fucking propaganda media in America is going under. We have. So they have lost the influence of minds. They've lost financial footholds, and now they're losing their useful idiots in the shape of the terrorists who they've been propping up, right? So you have to do it this way round. And at any point in time, they could have stopped before we got to the point where we are now, when they chose not to. So it genuinely breaks my heart, the pain people are going through and the murders. And there's been mass murders of people for years and years and years and years and years. So it's not new. It's ending. I still don't believe violence. Violence just creates more violence. So everybody will have to be fucking vigilant for the next. Like, you need to break the cycle, and that's an entire generation. That's like 25, 30 years after like this point in time, until the cycle's broken, because then it's really easy for people to just fucking the ideologies need to be broken. It's not the case of you just get rid of one bad person and then everybody else in the country is good. That's not how it works. Like in 2020, the National Crime Agency said there was about 200,000 paedophiles in the UK. Now there's almost 1 million. And in 2021, they rolled up about 5,000 of what they considered the worst of the worst of the worst. But now we will have more, right? Because at that point, there was a quarter compared to what they've since discovered and uncovered. That's a lot of fucking evil people in the UK. So overlord view. Trump's pragmatism dismantles the scheme. Proxies fall like dominoes, weakening pawns. Implications: resets the global order, but risks backlash if, say, for example, China and Russia unite. And they tried to do this before. Remember, so we got BRICS. So Russia, China, India, they all tried to come together before, but none of them are standing up for each other because nobody... The might already been crippled. They're not in a place where they're actually strong, which is why we've got fucking spies in UK Parliament, which is why we've got the fucking China embassy, which is why we've got them doing dodgy shit still, but they don't have the physical power. So if you think of the sheer numbers of people in China, right? So we have to kind of like put Russia to the side for a little bit because they are currently militarily stretched in Ukraine, right? And they've been sanctioned to fucking high heaven by the EU. And so So just thinking about China, because Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran have hurt China's capacity to be the manufacturing dominant country, because it's energy, it's oil, right? It's oil, and you can't move things, and they are fossil fuel heavy, right? Yes, they've just been making more coal-fired power stations, but to get it from China to everywhere else, they need fuel, right? And China does not produce enough fuel on its own, which is why it required the other places. So if China has their their military might, they do the parades all the time, and why didn't they just land? Why haven't they attacked? Why haven't they defended Iran or Venezuela? I mean, they're getting their lawyers. Trump did what he did to Venezuela and said they were getting 47 lawyers overnight. Right, we're getting our lawyers to look into it. That's not a nothing's happened. The UN can't do anything because the vast amount of money from the UN was the USA, and the USA is not going to fund to fucking tell themselves off. So even if China and Russia join together, I mean, Russia's in no state to join in another military base. I mean, we keep getting scared that they're just going to nuke ours, which they may do because we keep fucking meddling in Ukraine, right? They may nuke us 100%, but they're not going to go and get involved in somebody else's war. They would just be like, right, fine, we'll get drones from somebody else. Fuck it. I might get drones from China, but China can't fucking get it to them. Okay, so then I asked, okay, so following on the same thread, what about the EU? Because the EU's obviously another cabal. So if you're looking at the fucking triangle, these are the puppet masters who've got no idea who the fuck they are, right? If we know somebody's name or we know about somebody, then they're not the people at the top of the pyramid. Then we probably get like EU royal family, like fucking the old fucking sick, inbred, thousands of year old generational god. And we have like Russia, China, Middle East, Iran, places like that, right? And America under Trump is over here on its own. Not under Trump, it's kind of like on par with EU, Vatican. So you got EU, City of London, Vatican, New York, DC, Washington, DC, sorry. That's like the three cabal branches. Money, City of London. City of London is not London. So people keep talking about London. It's City of London is not London. It is an independent city that is not actually part of the fucking country. Is the financial arm, Vatican the religious arm, and then Washington DC was like the military, right? So by Trump being in charge, like the cabal has no military, but which is why they're using the proxies. So like you've got America over here, and then the pyramids kind of still intact, but fucking struggling. So that's how we know. So we know what's kind of going on down here, which feeds into, right? And then the EU feeds into like the next pyramid, right? So if you've ever been in an MLM scheme, he's taken out the bottom rungs, because that just fucking economically and strategically fucks up the rung above it, right? You only are in a position of power because you've got everybody else down here doing the work for you, and you can be at the top of your fucking pyramid, and your puppet stringing. I'm finding it very difficult to say words today. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so EU, how are they bad too? Well, not how are they bad, we know how they're bad, but how is what Trump's doing going to affect the EU? Because it doesn't necessarily seem like it has on the surface, because it's all like over there, right? So second presidency since obviously we've had the tariffs, so we've had a lot of fucking economic pain. So aggressive unilateral policies that reverberated across the Atlantic, inflicting measurable harm on the EU. These actions rooted in America first, so span trade, energy security, and diplomacy, often exacerbating existing EU vulnerabilities like economic stagnation, energy dependence, and geopolitical fragmentation. So multiple angles are explored. So economic harm, so tariffs, trade wars, and growth drag. So Trump's economic agenda prioritized protectionism, imposing broad tariffs to address perceived trade imbalances and boost US manufacturing. This echoes his first-term steel 25% and aluminium 10% tariffs on the EU in 2018, which cost EU exports billions, and promoted retaliatory messages 25-26, which is escalated, harming the EU export-driven economy. So even the tariffs, even when we escalate, it causes us harm, because the groundwork was already in play before Trump started fucking throwing tariffs at people. So we've got 10 to 20% baseline on all imports starting mid-25. Raised the average US tariff rate from 2.4 to 16.8 by the end of the year. So German cars, Volkswagen, BMW, French wines and cheeses, costing the EU an estimated 50 to 100 billion in lost exports annually. So EU responded by, digital services like taxes kind of went up, and then just being silly. So this Venezuelan oil and the Iran strikes have affected EU firms relying on global commodities, inflating costs for manufacturers. So that's, again, it's harmed. So Trump was very specific, like made in America, bringing it all back into America. All of this is what I mean by the groundwork before the kind of he's at this position where he is now. So then we have security and defense. Sorry. So still with regards to that. So over 100,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost in the EU. So it's accelerated deindustrialization in the EU. So security and defense. So the EU is being pressured into creating its own little EU defense force, and again, forcing the UK back in, right? This is what we've got, fucking Stalin, Starmer, pulling us back in, kicking and screaming, because they need our money as well, right? Fucking arseholes. So Trump conditioned US support 2% GDP, threatening troop withdrawals from Germany and Poland if they didn't meet it. So it forced 20 to 30 billion in extra EU spending, diverting funds from social programs, but also the USA obviously stopped Ukraine funding because it knew where the money was going, and then shifted the burden to the EU. So the EU is having to funnel its own money rather than taking American taxpayer money to fund the cabal, right? So it's just taking it off us again. Venezuelan refugees rocked up in Spain, cyber threats. So that's kind of causing conflict. And obviously China's fucking cyber threatening everybody. Oh, well, I don't know what they're doing in the other countries, but they are doing it to the UK every day. So increased vulnerability. So the EU is now exposed to Russia and Middle East instability from the Iran war. So there's been far-right gains in France, Germany, splitting up of the EU. Energy harm. So US controls redirect supplies of Venezuelan oil, cutting EU access to discounted crude and raising Brent price from raising the Brent price 29% to $99 a barrel. With the Iran war, the facility strikes and Hormuz blockade disrupt 20% of global oil, causing EU gas prices to surge. And Qatar has had to halt shipments. So that's huge. Qatar is the seat of the financial seat of the Muslim Brotherhood, have been funding a lot of fucking dodgy shit, including Tucker. Follow the money. So Qatar is being harmed. So we should see less Muslim Brotherhood-based rhetoric. Not going to happen though, because we just got a new fucking Muslim Thaw. So it's the blowback is it's accelerated the green transitions and green push, right? Because now there's a reason. So this is why I'm not happy fucking Trump. Is now they can say, well, if we were using solar, it wouldn't be an issue. Wouldn't be a fucking issue if you didn't put so much fucking money on tax. And that was funny. What was it? 38%? Like there's almost like 60% of British fuel is tax. It's like 1% is profit to the fuel companies. The rest is just bullshit. That's what fucking Bacon Boy was shown. So harming fossil dependent states such as Germany, accelerating green transitions. So Italy's benefiting from US LNG exports, but at premium prices. So Paris Accord was reaffirmed. So we saw that, and we need to get out of the fucking Paris Accord. So we've got higher cost of living crisis again over here, higher energy bills, and the UK already has the highest wholesale energy prices. It definitely in Europe and potentially in the world, but I mean, there's some places that are really struggling. But like ours are fucking insane. So we can't manufacture anything. So we rely on China, and now China can't fucking ship anything, right? So the UK is going to really fucking struggle through this shit, and that doesn't mean it doesn't need to happen, but this is just because we've been put in this position because we have been forced deindustrialized, but maybe this will force us back into creating our own, like we just, you'll have to need must, right? In crisis comes innovation. So diplomatic harm with regards to so with regards to food, so now so we've had a unified EU making deals with Mercosur, especially on the food, and that has really angered the British people and the UK population, because we're no longer now using our fucking Welsh lamb that gets shipped over the world, and then we have to have non-standard meat and fruit and vegetables and all of those things that use pesticides that are banned in the United Kingdom. So that's not fun, Trump. But if our own government prioritized actually growing shit and subsidizing farmers and allowing farmers to make money rather than clearing them off the land, we wouldn't be in this position, right? So the pushback needs to come from the farming industry. But they're all being led astray by fucking Jeremy Clarkson, who everybody thinks is a good person, but he's like fucking BBC. And yes, he did punch that guy, but he was still in the BBC for a very long fucking time, and he's establishment. And yes, I mean, I like watching him on the telly, but he's old God, peeps. He's old God. Anyway. So if the EU is also so this is the layer above, right? What's Trump doing? So in our evil overlord scenario where I'm the overlord, according to Grok, it's a bit harsh. I use China and Russia as pawns to manipulate proxies around Venezuela, Cuba, etc. for global control. The EU is a subtle proxy, my bureaucratic puppet, fostering dependency on globalist structures such as the World Trade Organization, climate pacts that undermine national sovereignty, indirectly aiding my anti-Western agenda via economic ties to China and Russia. So what Trump's done is his tariffs fracture EU unity, exposing it as a weak link. So then China's flooding diverted goods, but EU realities weaken the supply chain. So Trump's pressure is forcing autonomy, breaking my influence, less reliance on Russian gas, unable to rely on things like NATO. We lean into the EU, and the EU fucking military force there isn't one. If EU fragments, so Hungary might align with Russia. I don't know. Orban, it doesn't mind Russia, but he's pretty fucking independent. And the Hungarian people are too. I love Victor. So that's where I'd move. But I don't want to. I love my country. I want England to be fixed instead. So energy weaponization, Venezuela, Iran, disruption, spike EU costs, eroding public support for green, climate deals tying EU to China, right? Because China is the one who is supplying all this fucking stuff, but they can't get it to us because there's no fucking oil. So then what, right? We've got fucking North Sea oil. So a weakened EU won't be able to mediate for my interests. Trump splits, proxies first, then allies, returns EU to the people by exposing supernatural overreach, forcing national defences over Brussels. It does risk the risk empowers. This is interesting. It empowers far-right nationalists, and these are the wild cards. So that's interesting. That the more Trump destabilizes the EU, the more opportunity the far right, and by far right, they mean anybody right of communism, because Nazis are far right and they're socialists, right? So I'm like, what, extreme right? Because I'm actually in the fucking middle politically. I think some of the shit they want to do on the right is just absolutely insane. And I think, okay, I'm not in the middle. I'm definitely right of the middle. But I do believe we should look after people who genuinely can't work, like, through, medical complications, or, like, I don't believe we should just fucking leave people out into the cold. Like, I'm human. But yeah, I'm probably, yeah, I'm right of center. Yeah. But I'm not, like, off to the end. But I mean, I must be, because the Nazis who were socialists, okay, so how does this work, right? So riddle me this. The Nazis were like racist, right? They were like all in on whites, right? Like Aryan race, except they did make Muslims honorary Aryans if they were killing the Jews, right? So I mean, they weren't really that bothered. But if they were racist and I'm not racist, that then makes me left, because the Nazis are like, so where am I? Where am I on this fucking, like, but I don't believe in fucking, I believe in capitalism. So I'm like, it's all bullshit anyway. It's just the fucking uni party. But like, these are the things that if you actually try and have this conversation with somebody who's left, be like, yeah, but the Nazis were really fucking racist, but they're socialist. So I'm not a socialist. The only thing you need to say if somebody calls you a Nazi, I'm fucking not a socialist. So if the EU collapses, it will create a vacuum, right? So we do have to be really fucking dicey times. Short-term harm to EU strengthened the chaos, but long-term it could forge a resilient West, checkmating the overlord. So that is, wanted to leave the kind of Cuba stuff on that because that is hope, right? And I kind of haven't really felt that in the last few days, like last few weeks, with just fucking shit going insane and me urging on the side of caution with who's going to take over the places of the toppled regimes, right? Because there's still a lot of fucking puppets in play. And you don't always know who somebody is, right? I mean, sometimes you do know, like Starmer. Like, I don't know why that was such a shock. Like, I also don't know why it's such a shock that like Trump's doing the things he said he would. Like, I don't understand how people have got to the fact that he's in his 80s, isn't he, right now? Like, decades he's been telling people, I'm going to do this thing. He did the thing, right? At no point has he gone, I'm going to do the thing. And he's just like, oh, yeah, I can't be bothered. He's like, I'm going to do the thing. And he does the thing, right? So when he says, going to do the thing, people need to kind of fucking believe him. So some people, you know who they are. Like, at least Trump's honest. There was somebody the other day who's quite famous on a podcast who finally caught up with something that I've been saying for a very long fucking time. Like, the UK is corrupt. They just hid it. They just hid it through the other countries. They've got good lawyers. And now all the lawyers are on board with, the FYI to everybody who is like, yay, the barristers are like petitioning against the judiciary, like against the jury trials. It's because it's going to make them fucking jobless. They don't care about you. They don't care about your rights, as they realized, holy fuck, if they get rid of jury trials, that means I'm out of a job. I am surplus to requirement. That's the only reason they care, because they're losing the money, losing the fucking pay packet. Now, I don't agree with getting rid of jury trials, just saying that. But that's the only reason. Like, where have they been through the fucking humanitarian crisis that's been going on inside the United Kingdom? Nowhere. Now they care because it's their money. And they've just realised that they are dispensable. Because they've been doing the cabal's bidding for a very long fucking time, and now they've just realised they're dispensable. Like, don't need you anymore. Gonna use an AI. Screw you. So that's where we are. Okay. So, moving on to the UK's council on new powers to enter homes without warrants for environmental reasons. And again, this was just skirted over. Like, I don't think anybody's kind of spotted this. I spotted this either this morning or yesterday. Which is, it's just a random news article. That's it. Right. This is fucking huge. So local councils have been given expanded enforcement powers, late 25, early 26, tied to environmental and housing reforms. This is all around net zero and cracking down on waste criminals, right? So people kind of like dumping their waste. And this is not people. This is fucking certain ethnic groups that live in fucking shitholes in other countries. Vast majority of the time. Or, we have... Anyway. So illegal dumping and fly tipping. So the Environment Agency, under government plans, has police-like authority to combat this. Environment Agency officers can search a premise, seize assets, and arrest suspects without warrants. So they do not need to go to a judge because, they're getting rid of jury trials, they're dismantling the justice system. So the Environment Agency does not need to go to a judge and say that they have reasonable suspicion. So if we go back to PACE, right? So PACE, which is the Police and Crime, PAC, Police and Crime. Oh, fucking hell. PACE, UK Police arrest. Oh my God. Oh, Police and Crime Evidence Act. There we go. 1984, which is hilarious. It's 1984, right? So under PACE, we have two types of offence. We have an indictable offence and non-indictable offence, or they're kind of like either way. So it can. So there's technically three. So there's indictable, non, and then there's like either way. It can go either way. An indictable offence is one where you don't need a warrant, right? These are the ones that members of the public can arrest somebody for. These are the Crown offences. These are offences against the Crown. So against the these are big things. So this is like rape, kidnapping, murder, terrorism, treason, like the big fucking things. You don't need a warrant, right? You could just fucking go in. Like if somebody says to you on the street, like they've just dragged that girl into that house, there's like 4 people have just dragged that girl into the house, she's kicking and screaming, the police don't need to go, or you don't need to go to a judge with reasonable suspicion and all of those things. You can just fucking go and rescue the person. It's about minimizing harm to life, right? Then we have non-indictable offences. So these are like fraud. These are like traffic offences and things that you have to have. So traffic offences, they kind of do it under fine. So they sneaky little fuckers. We've had creeping fucking powers, but so in order for so the only things that don't need a warrant are indictable offences. So now they're putting a potential environmental offence on the same level as murder, kidnapping, rape, treason, terrorism. And it's not even the police doing it, who have they're trained investigators, all of those things. Whether they're good or bad is by the by. Let's just kind of look at like the institution, what the institution has been designed to do for 150 200 years, like the peelers, right? Victorian times, 150 years or so. This is the Environment Agency. These are just fucking civil servants. These are jumped up council members, because it's your local council, right? At local council and Environment Agency, who now can just frog march into your fucking home, seize assets, arrest suspects, and search your premise. The police can't do that. Our law enforcement agencies do not have that power to do that without going to a judge. This is absolutely horrific, and nobody is batting a fucking eyelid about it. This is one bit of legislation that'll lead to another little bit of legislation that'll lead to another little bit of legislation. This penalties include unlimited fines and or prison. Right, this is not even like we're just going to give you a grand fine. This is like prison sentences. Like they have no right. By law, this is fucking legislation that's being passed, right? Your private property, your castle, right? This is trespassing. Like until this point, like even the police can't fucking walk into your home without a warrant. I mean, they can come in, like, if threat to life, right? Threat to life. That's why they'll go, oh, I'm sure I heard a girl screaming, right? Threat to life. Wait a minute, what was that? Did somebody shout bomb? It's like threat to life, right? They have to have a reason to come into somebody's home, which if there's that reason, it's trespassing. You can sue the police for trespassing, right? The Environment Agency and your fucking local jumped up counsellors are now going to be able to come into your home and arrest you for crimes against the climate, which include not having a heat pump, because heat pumps are good. Rupert Lowe will love this because, he's got like shareholder in an energy firm that's getting fucking money on the back end from the climate stuff because he makes heat pumps. So they are allowed to enter business premises without notice, residential properties, if they suspect violations such as illegal evictions or substandard housing, which increasingly includes environmental factors like energy efficiency. Right? That's not, I'm going to come into your home because like say like I'm a tenant and I have gone to the council and I've gone like taken like a million photos and there's like fucking black mold everywhere, there's holes in my roof, like I've got buckets. Like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about environmental efficiency. So if you do not have the required, as per the fucking backhanded contract in your local authority, level of insulation, then you can be arrested and face prison sentence. It's delayed until 2035 for full enforcement, but mandates homes must meet eco standards. No damp, better insulation, and you must cut emissions. They can issue penalties up to 30k, but actually it's unlimited fines. Enter if there's reasonable suspicion of breaches, right? Ties to, so the councils can set higher standards. So the councils can make the rules about what they believe will be on par with murder to come into your home, because maybe you have got a fucking fire. You got an open fire, which you're allowed. Maybe you're having a barbecue in the garden. That's it. You're now in prison for an offense against the fucking environment. Like, this is just insane. Like, absolutely batshit insane. Phase 1 rolls out in May this year. This is literally where we are at right now in the United Kingdom. And remember, in 10 years, well, by 2030, you're not allowed to buy a new boiler. 10 years after that, so 2040, you're not allowed to repair boilers. They are banning, right? Banning boilers. They're forcing you to have these fucking heat pumps, forcing you to have things that actually don't fucking work. And if you don't do it, so if you don't have your smart meter, imagine going to prison for choosing not to have a fucking smart meter. And you pay more anyway. We pay more because I refuse to have a smart meter. So our gas and electric is like more than everybody else's. But I'd rather not fucking fry my brain, just thrown out there, with one of those things. Or they can't cut me off as easily, right? If you don't have your water meter, cut you off. Well, no, they can't cut me off, but it's easier for them to cut you off, which is why, because everybody refused the water meters. Did you notice that they're digging up the ground and they're putting it on the pipes that are in the street? You probably missed that because you weren't really paying attention to what was going on. But this is you've got all of the fucking lawyers who are where they're so busy trying to save their own jobs. Look at the shit that they're fucking putting in while nobody's paying attention. Like, I urge you to go to your local council and speak to people, and then you'll see now who's just been given investigative powers and on par with, like, legit. I mean, not having a smart meter means I could go to prison probably for longer than all the people who've been raping children of a certain ethnic persuasion, and they're getting community sentences because they're characters of good standing. All right, what do we have right now? We have women, with regards to the BBC license, there are pensioners in prison for not paying their BBC, for failure to pay their BBC license, of which the highest percentage is women. Your little old granny's gone to prison for not paying her BBC license and using, like, the telly. But there's a fucking person raping and trafficking children who just gets a slap on the wrist. This is literally what's going on in this country. And now you'll just, all those people who are choosing not to buy into the climate bullshit, as is my right to do so, like living in a democracy, but a choice, I choose not to do something, go to prison for it. I mean, it's free food. Can sleep in. Like, I don't know. Prison seems quite appealing, I'm not gonna lie. But you get to do arts and crafts. It's like being back at school. I quite enjoyed school. And I'm a scrappy little fucker because you learn to be in order to protect yourself. But it's just like, it's insane. And so then this leads us nicely onto the new Islamophobia definition. So either so if I tried to leave the country, right, it's my granddad's 90th birthday in August. So because if you try and leave the country, it's Section 7 of the Terrorism Act, which is they don't need suspicion. They can just fucking arrest you, right? Because you don't even need to look suspicious. They can just choose to, right? Ports and borders, unique to ports and borders. So now we have another way they can just fucking arrest you, right? And then you would have to go to court and prove it was politically motivated. The Section 7 is often used as political motivation, but so I'm either going to get arrested trying to go to my granddad's 90th, or because I refuse to have a fucking smart meter, or for social media posts. But even for now, anti-Muslim hostility. So suggesting that a unusually large percentage of Pakistani Muslim males are interested in raping little white girls is now a crime to say it, but it's not a crime to do it. If it was a crime to do it, they'd be in prison. But remember, they're not in prison, but you can go into prison. You can go to prison for talking about it. They're allowed to attack Jews, but you're not allowed to say that they're attacking Jews because that's anti-Muslim hostility. This is where we are in our fucking topsy-turvy world. So they unveiled the anti-Muslim hostility definition March the 9th, ditching Islamophobia because to avoid conflating criticism of Islam with anti-Muslim hate. It describes hostility as prejudice or discrimination against Muslims or those perceived as such, including verbal abuse, vandalism, or exclusion, right? So this is key, exclusion, for an example that's just happened. So you can be charged with anti-Muslim hate for excluding them. Accompanying text clarifies it doesn't stifle free speech on religion or Islamism. A new anti-Muslim hostility czar, special representative, was appointed to champion anti-hate efforts, facilitate implementation and advise on cohesion amid rising incidents post-Gaza conflict and far-right unrest, right? So it's not... the jihadi protest marches that's the problem. It's the women who were stopping Epping who were the problem, right? The women who were defending the children who were being raped and groomed and abused are the problem, not the people who were calling for the death to the UK. And obviously we've got the Green Party. And I told everybody on the Green Parties, now everybody's paying attention to the fucking Green Party. Who has a literal jihadi as their deputy, was second in command. Anyway. Everybody only tells you when it's time to tell you. So critics like terrorism reviewer Jonathan Hall warn it could confuse police and chill speech. Supporters like Imam Qari Assam see it as acknowledging real discrimination. So when are we getting the anti-white hostility law? I mean, that would fuck the BBC, wouldn't it? Like, maybe that's what we need. We need an anti-white hostility law and a white anti-white hostility. So I'll do that. And then as an Indigenous population, is the first thing we should do is sue the BBC, who is supposed to be our national broadcasting corporation, who made Queen Elizabeth I black. So I was offended by that. I mean, she was fucking ginger as well. So I'm doubly offended. Why am I allowed to be like just gone? You're not welcome here. Anyway, that would be funny. Maybe that's a bit. Well, because it's now official. Maybe that's a petition I can actually get through. That would be funny. Anyway, confuse the police. How can it confuse the police? Right? There's no crime. I can say whatever the fuck I want. If somebody's a criminal, I'm going to call it out. And you can't tell me it's a crime to call out a crime. Like, at all. Just plead not guilty. Remember the rules. Plead not guilty. And don't trust dodgy lawyers who tell you to plead guilty. Plead not guilty and take it just, I mean, obviously they're getting rid of the jury trial, but just still plead not guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty in this country. They have to prove it, right? And proving a tweet that you write saying this is disgusting, this is a crime, as long as you are actually doing that for everybody who's doing it, then it's fine, right? I mean, if you are a fucking racist, hostile scumbag, then maybe stop being a racist, hostile scumbag. However, if you are just against people who are criminals, then you've got nothing to worry about. So the Tsar role aims to counter Islamist extremism as a cohesion threat while protecting Muslims. Protests against the Tsar as a backdoor blasphemy law are planned for March the 18th, so on Wednesday. So what we've had very recently, so there was a viral video showing 6 armed UK police arresting a man named Lee at Manchester Airport over an offensive Facebook post on immigration, reported as hate speech under the new framework. The police were asked what the fuck they were doing, and they said they were just following orders, right? So I mean, that went really well in like, maybe they should pick up a history book, because it didn't bode so well for the SSS officers who tried to say I was just following orders, right? So I mean, that wasn't verbal abuse, wasn't vandalism, wasn't exclusion. Just probably said, get the fuck out of the country. You're not welcome here. I think that's fair enough. I tell everybody, leave. It's too small. Country's too small. Go back to your country. It's fine. You want to live in a Muslim country? This isn't a Muslim country. Go to a Muslim country. You want to live in a non-Muslim country? Then stay here. That's fine. As long as you don't then isolate yourself and create a Muslim pocket, because we're not a Muslim country. So if you want to live under Sharia law, you don't create a Sharia court, you go and live in a Sharia country, right? If I want to live in a country that spoke French, definitely don't. If I wanted to live in a country that spoke French, I wouldn't create a French pocket in the United Kingdom. I would go to a French-speaking country. If I wanted to live in a Catholic country, I would move to a Catholic country. Or I would politely practice a religion at home and then be involved in the country that I was living in, right? Especially if I've fucking relocated there. I've relocated there for a reason, and it's not to turn this new place into the fucking shithole that I left, where people are getting stoned, executed. Like, if I don't want that, why? This is what I don't understand. Like, why do you escape something? It's because they're supposed to be refugees, right? Because they're not. But if you actually were, like, I know actual genuine people who left Middle Eastern countries in fear of their life, right? Who left because they literally couldn't take the executions of children, including hanging, stoning, all of that happens in Saudi Arabia, on a weekly basis, like who literally could not do that anymore, come to this country, integrate, become successful, and now they're watching this country fucking turn into the place that they left in fear of their lives. And they can't speak out. And they can't speak out because they are first, right? I mean, some of them do. But anyway, so dude sent a post, get 6 armed police officers. It's fucking hilarious. What a waste of money. What an absolute waste of taxpayer money that was. 6 armed police officers for a Facebook post. So the guy, Lee, needs to do a Freedom of Information request to find out how much that cost. We need to understand who authorized it. I mean, obviously, he just needs to plead not guilty, keep pleading not guilty, and fucking discover that shit. And people need to get sacked. What? Because that is a waste of public resources. Like, do them for whatever you want to do them for, right? Countersue, like sue them. Sue the police for a waste of people, like resources. Anybody in Manchester who has Manchester Airport as part of your constituency, you need to be like filing like FOIs and suing the police, coming together, sue the police. Like, if you join together, if everybody puts like a little bit of cash together, you'll be able to do that, right? This is what we need to do as a nation. Is just sue their fucking asses, and then they'll have to stop doing it. So then we have a Sikh restaurant in Hammersmith. Harman Singh Kapoor of Rangres was arrested over the weekend after refusing halal meat menu, right? So Sikhs and Muslims have got like their beef goes back, and beef is not like meat, pun intended, like I mean like argument, goes back like the hundreds if not thousands of years as well, right? I don't know when Sikhs came along, but it's a long fucking time. So he excludes the Muslims by not having halal, right? So everybody who wanted halal removed from supermarkets, you can't now because it excludes the Muslims. I don't know why they need I don't know why my meat needs to be halal. They have a fucking halal section in Sainsbury's. So they can just eat that. But exclusion. So if you don't want them praying in the streets, you're excluding them from public spaces. If you don't want somebody to wear a burqa in your school, there's that head teacher, you're excluding them. Hey, Pen. This exclusion, that's the dangerous word in this piece of legislation of definition. Verbal abuse, I mean, call it, I mean, fucking verbally abusing anybody is a crime, right? Vandalism is a crime. Like, they don't need to be specific. But exclusion classified as a hostility, a prejudice, or discrimination. So that means when you are singing, Christian hymns, that excludes the Muslims in a primary school because they're not Christian. Everything you do that is not Islam excludes the Muslims. Like, they've literally just written it. Like, people are not paying attention to what's actually happening. Right? They're reading the headline and go, oh my God, like fucking Islamism through the back door. No. They've just made it lawful that anytime you are not doing anything which promotes Islam, you are actively excluding the Muslims. That's what that law will be. Anything. That's how fucking dangerous that is. And nobody's noticed because people are just not paying attention. Like, the wording is so fucking important. You cannot argue. Like, there is no argument you can make. Does not matter that you have a primary school that has been singing fucking a hymn for 400 years. Some of our primary schools are hundreds of years old. There may be a hymn that you sing every single fucking morning because it was the favorite hymn of the landowner who created the school for the fucking farms that used to live there, and it's part of the history of the school. If it is not appropriate based on that family's interpretation of the hymn, and they are now not, they feel excluded from participating, if their child's now feels excluded from participating in the morning hymn, you've just broken the fucking law. You literally can't do anything. So the Sikh restaurant owner was arrested for halal, for not serving halal because he's technically excluded the Muslims. Doesn't matter that this is his own fucking business and he can serve whatever the fuck he wants to whomever he wants. And Sikhs avoid halal due to animal welfare concerns and ritual slaughter, and quite rightly decide not to engage in somebody else's fucking religion, right? For atheists who don't give a shit about animal welfare, that if you want to do that, that's up to you, right? But they are literally saying your religion is now secondary. Like, the guy was fucking arrested. He defended his family business, but police arrested him. Reports say for arrest, possessing a bladed article. So that's the little blade that they have that they're lawfully allowed to carry. And supposedly he did hate and threatening social media posts, right? However, if you've seen the video, there were gangs of Muslims outside his fucking place of business, harassing and intimidating him because he chose not to fucking serve halal, and he's the one who was arrested. There was a video of 2 fucking Islamists on horses racing through the streets of one of our cities, enforcing Sharia law, and the police just said, "Well, I can't do anything." You fucking can do stuff. There are mounted police officers. You can do stuff. You can fucking stop the horse. Like, if I got on a horse and started racing through the fucking streets, I'm sure the police would do something about it. And quite rightly. They didn't follow them. They didn't use the AI fucking recognition cameras. They didn't do anything. They just let it fucking happen. So you need to use this when you are so fucking scared to say stuff. Be like, they do nothing about this small fucking population because there isn't enough of them, right? And this is why it's fucking dangerous. This is why they don't, because they're more likely to get volatile. So the protesters, they weren't fucking protesters. They weren't protesting. They were inciting violence and harm. Like, they were behaving in a criminal manner, and nothing happened to them. But it's been an entire week, right? So 9th. So it's been 7 days. Yeah, an entire week. Where are the influencers telling you that you've just been fucking shafted, right? It's not a blasphemy law. It is a you can't do anything law. So, on that bombshell, we just fucking ignore it anyway, because, like, they can't do anything. What are they going to do? Like, arrest you and then what? What happens if you go to prison? We just plead not guilty. You still have to prove it in a court of law, even if there's no jury. You still have to fucking prove it. What's the crime? I chose not to eat halal-based meat because it's against my own beliefs, which are protected under the Equality Act. My right to belief and family life is protected under the Human Rights Act. Like, at what point are you going to tell me I have to adopt somebody else's religion? Is that seriously what you're going to fucking arrest me for? Is not adopting somebody's religion who's a minority? If you are being violent, if you are being aggressive, if you are harassing people, you deserve to go to fucking prison, right? If you're not doing those things, then they have to prove you're a criminal. But they've just made it fucking easy, right? They've just made it really easy. But there's no fucking prison places, so... Anyway, so, wrapping up. Okay, so there was a short video that was shared on X about an experiment that was showing how one negative person completely disintegrates group performance. So we've got teams solve puzzles faster without complainer dragging vibes down. So it's proof of negative people ruining your life. And we kind of like, if you've ever been in a room and you've kind of like having conversations and somebody just comes in and they're just negative, and I mean, you've probably been in there and you felt it. And if you're in a room with somebody and they're complaining and moaning, then you will end up complaining. Like, you bring people, it's really easy to bring people down, but it's also really easy to bring people up as well. So, studies show that negativity spreads like a virus, boosting stress hormones, killing creativity, and slashing productivity by 30 to 40%. And in real life, it hits the co-worker who gripes endlessly or the friend who poo-poos your goals. Okay, so what can we do about that? Because it's important, because all we ever see is fucking negative stuff, right? So if all you ever see is negative stuff, you're going to feel more negative. You're going to feel more depressed. You're going to feel like, fuck me, there's nothing I can do. And if you've watched this show from start to finish, ignoring the like 8 minutes where I was on mute, then it seems very depressing, right? I mean, literally saying you could be arrested for doing anything that's not Islam, right? That's technically what they have on the books, but the reality is very fucking different, genuinely, right? And you might be thinking, yeah, but what about Lucy Connolly? Like, she incited, like, incitement is already a crime, and it is punishable to the same weight out of the crime itself, right? Conspiracy is a crime, and it's punishable to the weight of the actual crime, whether it happens or not, right? So these are real crimes. And if you are stating everybody in a fucking hotel should be set on fire, like, I don't think that's a nice thing to say, right? And the fact that you've gone on to social media to do that, I mean, do I think she deserved XYZ number of, like, I think the punishment was extreme, genuinely, but what she said was pretty fucking horrific, right? And falls into a criminal offense of incitement. Doesn't even need like the Online Safety Act or any of their fucking bells and whistles. They pushed it. Like, that's been on the books for a couple of decades, longer, just tweaked in the last 2 decades. So if you sat there thinking, holy shit, like the world's going up in flames, like energy prices through the roof, like we can't get food, like it sounds really fucking depressing. It does. But humans are really resilient for a start, right? There are so many things you can do. And I was about to talk about moringa trees, but they're fucking dying. So that is really depressing. Don't know why they're dying. I don't know what's going on. My microgreens, the tortoise food is doing really well, but that's like everything else is just like, but that's okay. That's what happens. It's fine. I've got protein shake. Fine. No. So look, humans are really fucking resilient. Our ancestors have survived like for thousands and thousands of years. There have been famines, there's been wars, there's been global instability, there's been fucking insane people in charge. Like, if you are just focused on surrounding yourself with people who not only bring truth, but also help you just fucking laugh about the insanity of all, like, and if you don't have anybody like that, you know, you go find some, like, find some people you can have a joke with. Like, if you feel good, right? So we know scientifically that the way you feel dictates the results that you see. So what does that translate to in this kind of frame? Like, if I am a negative Nelly and I spend my entire day being a negative Nelly and around negative Nellies, then chances are the minute I post something on social media, it's going to go viral for all the wrong fucking reasons, and the police are going to turn up at my door, and then there's just going to happen to be a free prison place. It just so happened to be that I'm going to get an angry fucking magistrate who I'm here to Telford, probably going to get one of the ones who is just fucking a psycho lefty, best mates with the MP, like, and just like, oh, all right, okay, well, what's the highest sentence that she can be given, right? Because I'm in that energetic state. So if I'm in that energetic state, the actions I take will reverberate the same energetic state, if not worse. And it kind of like tenfold is kind of how it happens. Why? Because energy is like it just expands and contracts. So expanding as you're putting it out, contracting as it coming back, right? This is like, that's physics, right? And then we go into the quantum physics with regards to everything's just energy. There's no actual space between us. We're all just atoms. We are one, not just one human. We are one with everything around us. We're just all vibrating on different frequencies, which is why some things look solid. So why sometimes I look chunkier. But like, so it's just like, it depends how you want to kind of look at this. But the reality is, the science proves that we are just energy, right? So I've shared with you before the story, like not just stories, actual documented evidence-based cases of there was a young mom in Australia who gave birth to her child. This is 2010. There's been plenty more since then. 2010, she gave birth to a child and he was dead. Like, no brain activity, no heartbeat, no nothing. And she had the little child, skin to skin, and she just gave him love. Like, pure love came from that mum, and the child came back to life 2 hours later. If you want more proof that we're all energy, look into the miracles in Lourdes, right? In France, right? People who are confirmed crippled by their life experience and have to have multiple medical professionals and x-rays showing that they are, you know, genuinely fucked, right? Dip themselves in some water. Within 24 hours, everything is gone, right? That it doesn't defy science, right? It science proves it's possible. So why? Okay, so thinking about the miracles at Lourdes, why did it happen? It's because they believed it could happen, right? Because the placebo effect, right? And the placebo effect is, it's like evil twin. So when you think about like dodgy shit, then like dodgy shit happens. But when you think about good stuff happens. But it's not just thinking about it. You have to actually wholeheartedly in your core believe it. The 72 documented miracles, like they had absolute faith, not hope. Hope is you hope something's going to happen, but you kind of believe, you can't have this niggling doubt that it's not going to, right? They have absolute rock solid faith that when they sit in that fucking pool of water, that's it. Their entire world shifts. So then what happens? The body does what it's supposed to fucking do. It fixes itself, right? Your blueprint is perfect. It's just all the shit that you kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis gets in the way, right? And I talk about my own, like, myself a lot, because I don't think people so you may not have met a miracle person. I have never met anybody from Lourdes, okay? But medically, on paper, like literally on paper, I should not be out of bed. I should not be doing HIIT. I should not be going in the sunshine, right? Like I should not be able to do any of the things that I can and do, right? Physiologically, autoimmune disorder, childhood arthritis in my hands, knees, ankles, hips that aren't actually on properly, my pelvic gait's twisted, my spine's pretty fucked, to be fair. My skin, it was so sensitive as a child that my skin used to boil and peel and just like disintegrate in the sunshine, right? Oh my gosh, so many other things. But because of my structural complications, I literally walked on all fours like a chimpanzee. Like couldn't, like physically couldn't stand up. Like legs are on like this way, right? You know, most people have got legs like that with your feet like that. Mine, like they're like that, right? And so how like structural physical complicate. I'm not gonna stand up and jump, but I could like this. I could if I wanted to. I don't really want to, and that usually does cause some pain in my knees, right? But I do like so just why am I able to do that? Okay, is because of my mum, because my mum is a fucking nurse. And if you've ever been around a nurse as a parent, you will know why I'm laughing right now. Okay, you are not ill unless you are like literally dying. And even when you're literally dying, is you're not ill enough to like just fucking get out of bed and go to school. That's it, right? Get out of bed and go to school. It doesn't matter that you got your pneumonia, just fucking go to school, right? Like the school would be like, she's She was walking down a corridor and her knees gave way twice. She actually can't stand up. Yeah, she'll be fine. Let her sit down for a little bit and she'll be fine. It's like she can't walk today. Well, she'll sit in the chair until I can't come and get her. Right? And it's but that was the mentality. Like, well, she'll be fine. She'll get up soon, right? And so because I had that nurse mom, right? It's like it's not an issue. Get out of bed, right? Get up, and you can be like in extreme levels of pain. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to go to school. So shut up, put up, go to school, right? So what happened was I got used to getting up, going to school, and just ignoring the pain, right? Ignoring it. And then eventually, like, it goes away because my body had the opportunity to heal. And the vast majority of the healing has happened once I got happy, right? Once I dealt with my childhood trauma, once I dealt with, so that was just like physical shit. Once I dealt with all of the, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, like all of that shit, then my body was in a position, it was no longer in the stressed nervous system state. It's able to heal, right? So I went and had an operation in 2021. And I walked into walked it, and I didn't wear a mask, wasn't vaxxed. Just for those of you who are new here, I walked into where it was only local anesthetic, but they had to fly. Some guy came like 240 miles to do it because it was like, this is far more complicated than we expected. So we've got like a retired specialist had to come back to sort me out, which is fine. He was singing to me. He was doing it, which was really kind of weird. But that's fine. There's a song like Katie in a Cowshed. I tell you, it was old. It was a distraction technique because I could feel what they were doing. And if you've ever had local anesthetic and they are in your muscles, like pulling things apart, it is very uncomfortable. So the one surgeon like had to hand over because he couldn't do it. Anyway, so when I walked in the room, he was just like, how are you walking? Like that was literally what he said to me. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, I read up on you because I'm retired. And I was like, am I really going to come out of retirement for like the XYZ operation? He was like, well, I kind of want to meet this person. Like I want to meet this person with all these fucking weird shit going on in her life. And then obviously I shocked him because I could just kind of like walk through the door and I was like, hi, like mask off, like I'm here. And he's just like, what, how are you upright? How are you walking? Like what, like genuinely expected me to be in a wheelchair and being fucking wheeled in. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, why wouldn't I be walking? Right? Like, I haven't had an accident. And he just started reeling off all the stuff. And he's like, I read your medical notes. I read like, you've got like osteoporosis, you got arthritis, you've got like twisted pelvic gait, your legs are on funny. And I was like, oh yeah. I said, I mean, sometimes it's a bit annoying. Like sometimes it stops working. I said, that's funny if you're in the middle of a supermarket and you're like, your legs just give way. Like it's quite, I mean, I think it's hilarious. It's just like, you have to, right? Because what are you going to do about it? Right? It's just like dumb shit. Like you can't, as long as you've not got like eggs on your hands, it's fine. I mean, even if you do, like there's nothing you can do about it. So if you focus on the good parts of life, right? So we do have all of this shit. We have all of this shit going on. And if you only tune into all of that shit, is your mental health will disintegrate, your physical health will disintegrate, and your entire outside world will match the way that you feel. You will end up having arguments with your partner. You will end up in that situation when you know, this is snowballed. You have arguments at work, that you no longer have a job. Then now you no longer have a house. Like once it snowballs, right? Like, Okay, obviously, once it snowballs, it snowballs. But I mean, once it kind of starts going downhill, like, you can stop it at any point, but you just decide, fuck this shit, right? And that's what I did when I tried to take my own life. I failed, right? I still think, I mean, I'm very glad I failed. Very glad I failed. But I stopped the cycle of abuse by just saying, fuck this shit. If I have to stay here, I ain't living that 21 years again and again and again. So something has to change. And I was a different person. Like, the world didn't change around me. I changed. And then little by little, as I went through university, learned all the psychological tools, came out of university, learned a hell of a lot more about what it takes to heal people. I applied all that shit to myself, dealt with my trauma, my experiences, all of those things. And then my body was able to heal. And then I'm in a position where, you know, how many 40-year-olds have their own home, which they actually have had for now 12 years. 12 years we've lived here. Like, how many 30-year-olds are on the property ladder in the UK? Hardly any. It's just me and my brother. My little sister, she's renting. My big sister lives with my mum, right? Anyway, so what can you do? Start with you, because you can't impact the world unless you feel good, right? And when you feel good, your energy feeds into the world. It helps other people feel good. People around you feel good. Like, it's like, be the ripple, like, that is the positive ripple. How do you do that? Like, just watch funny stuff. Like, genuinely, like, I say this over and over, and you're probably thinking, for fuck's sake, Katie, have you got any better tips? I do have lots of better tips, but like, even my clients who come to me who are have experienced extreme trauma, so all of that awful stuff that you see on you know, satanic ritual abuse, DID, extreme psychosis, I tell them to do this. I tell them to turn one of their social medias into a fucking funny video AI algo. Right? When you feel like shit, you cannot do any of the higher level mind stuff, right? Because your brain doesn't function. You have to use an outside source to trigger your biology. And even if you're not fucking laughing out loud, like, you will be having like rumblings. And it's not necessarily about you laughing out loud, it's about serotonin being triggered. Right? First up, like, find something that makes you feel good and do it. Like, do it a lot. The more you feel good, the more your nervous system regulates. The more your nervous system regulates, the faster your body heals. The faster your body heals, the faster your mind has the opportunity to hardwire your new happy, healthy future. Like, it's not mind first, it's biology first. That's what works, and that's what works fast, right? So, like, 12 weeks, that's all it takes to go from suicidal to actually enjoying life. Go from DID, switching without your knowledge, to actually having control, right? 12 weeks is not a long time. And if you are not fucking walking out of a secure unit, like one of my clients did, like, literally walked out one day and therapy the next day, if you're not in that state, then it's not that those techniques are beneath you. It means it's going to work even faster, right? Because we're all human. We all do the exact same fucking thing. We all work in the same way. So first up, find things that make you feel good. Set some goals. What do you want to achieve? Maybe you want to laugh 3 times a week. Actually laugh out loud. Why would that be a great goal? Because then you've got to go find something that's going to make that happen. And you're probably going to have to watch quite a few things to make that happen. And so much good stuff goes on the back end. So much good stuff. Make another goal. What do you want to do in 9 weeks from today? Like, what would your life look like if it was just 2% better? What would you do if you were 9 weeks from today and your life had improved by 10%? What would your life look like? Like, journal that. What would you be doing? Like, one of the things that and it doesn't have to be a big thing, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Doesn't mean you have to do everything today. One of the things that's been on my to-do list for a while is to redo cleaning the grout in the bathroom. Like, I hate cleaning. I really hate cleaning. Because it's a time waste, right? Anything that's going to waste my time, and it's not wasting your time because obviously you need to clean a house, right? A house isn't like a mess. It's a bit untidy, but it's not like fucking. We're not hoarders, right? And we clean stuff, but I kind of clean stuff when it needs cleaning rather than, you know, it is a genuine time thing, because I really like a nice, clean, sparkly home. So one of the things that has been on my to-do list for a couple of months is to redo all of the grout in the bathroom. Like, I try and do it like every 6 months. And I was struggling to find the time to just dedicate to like ripping the bathroom, like, because you have to move all the cupboards out of the way. Like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it properly, right? And so what did I do instead? I was like, no. And I've got one of those pink, what's it called? Pink stuff tubs. But it came with like a pink, I bought a kit, right? Anything to make my life easier. Which has got like a battery operated, it's like a toothbrush with like specialist ends that's for cleaning. So it's like bigger than a toothbrush, but it's kind of like an electric toothbrush. And some pink stuff. And it came with 2 pots of pink stuff. I don't really like chemicals. But this is like hard abrasive stuff. So I wanted the machine. So I'm going to use the machine because I don't really like waste. And I need to probably look into making a thing. I haven't yet. I'm just using the pink stuff. 95% chemical free. Anyway, so I've had the stuff ready to go, and I haven't got around to doing it for like 6 weeks. So I decided 2 days ago, that's fine. I am going to do a square, and we've got like big tiles that pretend to be little tile. I mean, it's not the bathroom we chose, it's just the bathroom we still live with. You know, our roof was the priority because we had fucking holes in it. So the roof is, we don't have holes in, and it's rained every day since we've had it fixed. So I'm thinking, thank fuck we haven't got water coming through the roof anymore. Anyway, roofs are expensive to fix. I'll just throw that out there. So I was like, okay. So yeah, so it's like tiles that pretend to be little tiles. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just do, every time I go to the toilet, I will just do a tile. Every time I have a shower, I will do a tile. And I'm already like 40% of the way through the bathroom in like 3 days. Okay, so I mean, I'm not saying you have to go and clean the bathroom tiles, but if there's something you want to do that you've been putting off because you're thinking, I can't find the time, I don't have the time to do that thing, it's gonna make me feel awesome when it's done, because it's not going to be more me walking into a room going, oh my god, I need to do that thing. Right, so every time you walk into the room, you go, oh my god, I need to do that thing. You're getting a micro stress, right? So you have to figure out how do I stop the micro stresses, because then they like pile on to, if you've got trauma, it's just going to make it all fucking worse, right? And at some point, you're going to be that person like crying in the kitchen floor over spilt milk. And I've been there, right? We don't need to do that. We can avoid that. So, what is the thing that you need to do? Like in 9 weeks from today, what is it you want to have achieved, right? Don't make it like huge. Maybe you want to, I don't know your life, right? So, whatever it is, I think about like my one tile rule. Right? How can you do like 3 minutes today or tomorrow? Because, you know, if you're in the UK, like today, now is quite late. What can you do 3 minutes or 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes every time you do something else, right? This is key, because you're not having to plan a time to find doing it, right? When you couple achieving your goals with something that you naturally do, and you just kind of tack it onto the end, like you're going to do it. So when I'm teaching people to use affirmations, you know, I teach them to create proper affirmations, not those shit ones you find on the internet, psychologically useful affirmations. Stick them in the bathroom, right? So when you're brushing your teeth, you're reading it. Stick it inside the cupboard where your tea cupboard is, or your coffee, right? So you go in the morning, you grab your cup, you open the cup, like, look at me, my actions, right? So you grab your cup or whatever out of the cupboard, and it's on the inside, right? So then you can read it. So then you take like 90 seconds, because it only takes 90 seconds for hormones to go around your bloodstream. It's all it takes. It's not long to trigger your nervous system to behave in a different way. Like, it isn't. Or you open the fridge and you have it underneath, have it attached to the fucking milk bottle. Or if you don't have milk and you have cream, stick it to the cream. Like, if you, you can pick one out of a pot and stick it on your mobile phone before you go to bed. So when your alarm goes off in the morning, the first thing you see is your affirmation. Like, there's so many different things that you can do involving the things that you want to do to make your life better or reach your goals, which are attached. Embed them in your already routine. Right? If you are trying to overcome if you're trying to build self-esteem, then you need to get really good at giving yourself compliments. Like, the best time to give yourself a compliment is when you're looking at yourself in a mirror. When are you looking at yourself in the mirror? Every time you fucking get dressed. So what could you do? You could stick a fucking post-it note on your mirror saying, I like your XYZ, insert, right? I used to look in the mirror and I used to hate myself. Legit would avoid looking in the mirror. And I started with, I don't mind my hair so much. I quite like the color of my eyes, right? That's where I started. And now I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, this is what I look like. Nothing I can do about it. Let's just go for it. Right. And I think that's a better place to be. I'm not a narcissist. I'm just like, this is who I am. Right. Which is the comfortable, that's the psychologically better way to be. Like, I mean, I do take pride a little bit in, like, I really did want to just rock up in my pajamas because I was running so late, but I didn't. I was like, no, let's have integrity and honor your audience who probably don't want to see you in your pajamas. So, but those little things will compound over time if you stick to it, and the best way to stick to it is by tacking it onto something that you already do. So make a list, right? Or make a map, make a little mind map, make a plan. I love fucking laminated little mind mappy things, and I've shown you them before. Like, I fucking love them. We've got like loads of little things that stick around the place that just help me remember to do stuff, right? Make your goals look beautiful, right? If you enjoy doing that. If you don't enjoy doing that, get like a fucking sticky note and just write one. I don't know. Laugh twice a day. It's not hard. If you've got a book you want to read that you bought and you're struggling to read, like, my clients start struggling to read because the brain stops working. I'm going to read 2 pages. I'm going to read 2 pages every time I make a cup of tea. So I'm going to stick the book by the kettle and I'm going to read 2 pages while the kettle's boiling. And then I'm just going to put it down, right? And then you get the dopamine rush because you did the thing, right? And that then allows you to do more the things, whatever your the things are. Okay, so I did a thing. I did a computer thing. I'm very proud of myself. And Edwin still hasn't even shown up today. Like, I was so excited to tell him I did a computer thing. Anyway, you can do whatever you can do whatever thing you want as long as it makes you feel good and it doesn't harm somebody else. I'm going to caveat, I encourage you to do things that don't harm other people. I can't force you not to, but I'm advocating not harming other people. So that's my rule, right? Do whatever you want within reason, i.e. not harming somebody else. If you have people around you who are negative Nellies and just will not get on board, right? They're not involved in, they're not all in on enjoying life and are very focused on all of the negative, right? Then you will be getting like fucking shitstorm your way if you are in like close proximity. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, do as many things as you can to make you feel good, right? That's like your buffer, right? If it's a like intimate partner, it's quite difficult to ghost them, but you can have an outlet afterwards, right? You can be there for them because they're struggling. But I promise you, if you shift the way that you feel, they will start to shift the way that they feel, just the ripple effect, right? It works in reverse. Go and get around some animals, 100%, right? You know, if you don't have animals at home, go and, you know, go and volunteer at a rescue home or something, you know, you know, dog and cat rescue, or you know, with horses. Horses are phenomenal at helping regulate your nervous system, which is why they're really good with children with autism. And there's a lady, the autistic lady. She has horses. I can't remember. Anyway, so they're really good, right? And actually, what happens, going back to the, you know, the mom who brought the child back from life, the same sort of thing happens with more with horses and dogs, and to some degree with cats and other animals. But horses and dogs have grown with humans over the last, you know, thousands of years. That there actually is quite a good symbiotic relationship. But if you have a dysregulated immune nervous system, and you are good-hearted, right? Because they fucking know if you are like evil, they don't like it. But if you are just like struggling and they are regulated, right? You don't want to get around like fucking a skittish animal. It's going to cause conflict. By you just going and, you know, touching them, being with them, that will shift your nervous system. Like it doesn't, and you don't actually have to touch them. You I think it's like 2 to 3 feet away. It's still fucking like this is why animals are so good. And this is why I advocate, like, if I'm having a shitty day, maybe something's happened and it's just, you know, thrown me for 6, I will go and just fucking like grab a dog. I go and lie and hug a dog. And the studies on women sleeping with their dog, and I don't mean like disgusting sleeping, I mean sleeping in the same bed as their dogs, getting good night's sleep, feeling good. It's energy. It's like you are feeding off their energy. And as long as you are taking your dogs out for a walk and they are going and running around on the earth and they are getting their energy regulated from the earth, from the electromagnetic field, like it's just like with us one like big fucking cycle of energy. And your energy, like these flashes are still fucking there, even though I did the computer thing. I don't know what's going on. You can expand and contract in a place of love, or you can expand and contract from a place of like anger, frustration. The world is ending, and whichever one you expand, you contract tenfold. So the more people, go look into the monk effect, the Maharishi effect. If you don't understand how powerful this is, go and look at the miracles in Lourdes. Go and look at the go onto archive.org and download the book called The Body Electric. That will open your fucking eyes. That will help. So it's not woo-woo. It's hard science. Really is. Okay. So, but yeah, I was saying, if you've got people who are like in your vicinity or negative Nelly, so as much as you can, just distance yourself while you are kind of feeling a bit better. And then if you do have to be around them, and then make sure you're doing everything on the back end to kind of re-regulate yourself. Right. So maybe, so after this, because it always, like, this is why I like to finish on a high, right? Because if I just finish like where we were, I'd be like, holy fuck, like I'm human, right? I would have to go and do like loads of, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to go do EFT. I've got to go hug my dogs. I've got to go watch a comedy. And that's what I do to be like, okay, that's fine. Dealt with now. Because I can't fix all these things directly, I can alter the way that I feel. And I know that will lead me to the solutions I need that will then result in fixing those things, right? Or impacting the lives of others who are then going to go on to fix those things, right? I don't have to do everything. I just have to be a good energy ball, and then I will interact with other energy balls that then do the other things, right? Or interact and bump and bump and bump and bump, right? I'd be like a big energy bump. It's like, oh my God, bumper cars. That's what we are. We're like energy-based, happy bumper car. I fucking loved bumper cars. That's my like road rage probably. I just loved it. I thought it was fun. So just go and do fun things. Right. That's it. That is like the mental health prescription for everything. Go and have fun. Go and enjoy yourself. Limit your time with people who are negative. Limit your time thinking about the things that are negative. Genuinely limit your time thinking about the things that are negative. And it's not about ignoring them so they're not dealt with, is you just can't deal with them in the capacity that you're in. And this really confuses my clients in the first few weeks when they come with like, oh my God, all these problems. Like, yeah, we'll deal with that later, right? Today, I just want you to do these X, Y, Z things, right? And I say like, we're not talking about any of that shit because your brain's not ready yet. Right? I need to build resilience first. You need to be resilient before I then fucking like get in there with all that like shit that you've been repressing, because otherwise you're going to end up in a catatonic state. And I'm not in the habit of putting people in intensive care. So that's what you need to do. And if you're around people who are being really negative and you can just ignore it and you can change the subject. And then they stop saying it around you. And that doesn't mean that they don't feel comfortable saying it, i.e. they then kind of withdraw. It means they're no longer saying it out loud, which means they're no longer hearing it, which benefits them, right? So when I'm working with parents who've got children who are struggling, that's what I advise them to do. Just ignore it, right? Let them fucking rant and then ask them if they want a cup of tea, like as though it never happened. Because you starve the beast, right? Starve it. Feed it full of love, feed it full of fun, starve the negativity. That's the fastest way to change anybody's behavior around you who's negative, is just by ignoring it. And if you can't ignore it and you get involved in the process, then you need to do more work on you. But we're human, we fuck up, right? So don't judge yourself. Don't be angry when you mess up. It's just life. You just try again the next day. That's it. Like if you're still here, you're still trying, then you haven't failed. You're just a work in progress, and we all are. And on that bombshell, which I think is a better bombshell to leave on, have yourselves an amazing rest of your Monday. I'm going to go hug a dog just because it's dog hugging time, and he's probably nice and fast asleep, and I'm going to go and wake him up. And I know they say you shouldn't do that, but we have purposely trained all of our dogs that I can just go and just they're big dogs, right? I go and, because otherwise then like they're in my fucking house, I can go get in their space. They get in my fucking space when I'm sat down watching telly. They fucking clamber all over me, so I go and get my own back. It's like revenge pact. But yes, if you don't have an animal that you have desensitized to like to just be like, fuck's sake, mum, I'm trying to sleep here. And actually then he's like snuggles up a bit more. They both kind of snuggle up a bit more. Don't do that. Right? One of our dogs is now deaf, so you do have to fucking and so this is the thing to be mindful for. Lots of dogs do go deaf in their older age. And if you can't touch your dog while it's asleep to wake it up, it's a bit dangerous. Because what if there's an electrical fire and you can't touch your dog? Like you need to desensitize them when they're puppies. You have to touch their feet. You have to touch their bits and bobs. I didn't touch their bits and bobs. Matt did that bit. I was like, I don't want to touch you, Billy. You touch you, Billy. This is where my brain goes. This is where the conversations goes. Who thought you would jump onto a live stream talking about Cuba, Islamophobia, and dog willy touching to desensitize, because we had very young nieces and nephews, and children just like grab animals, right? So this is why you have to desensitize them properly if you have children in and around the home, is because children just like, children fall over. And so what you don't want the dog to do is then attack your child or your niece and nephew, somebody else's child in the house, because you didn't desensitize it. So it's not, before anybody like calls the RSPCA, it was like we were this is what you have to do, right? It's so fucking weird. I don't touch, and Matt doesn't touch them now. It was purely desensitized. This is just so bad. Anyway, so you can knock my dogs all of it, and do probably just give you a day look, like, for fuck's sake. Anyway, but if you do have a puppy, you just be careful. Like, you need to make sure you do those things, but not like, it's not weird. Like bestiality is a crime. Let's not sexually abuse animals. That's disgusting. But you need to touch their feet. Like, they really don't like their feet being touched. Like, my one's still a bit like, don't do that, mum. And I'm like, don't do what? Don't do what? Like this? Don't do this. He's just like, I hate you. And then give me a what's it, right? And then he's just like, oh, fucking grumble at me, and then just goes back to sleep. I mean, he's getting better with his feet, but he's getting better with his feet. But it's just, you have to do it more, right? Be like, well, you don't like this, so I've got to do it more, so that you just like don't give a shit, because that's the point. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Have yourselves an amazing rest of your Monday. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.